गुरु प्यारी साध संगत जी, वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह. Welcome to the 18th Annual Shaheedi Smagam. Every year, Gurmat Center gets together to remember the Shaheeds of 1984. We would request that parents actually join the program if you're not already, and if you're not able to, at least the last 15 minutes. We already posted this on our social media, but due to unforeseen circumstances, Bhai Navreet Singh ji and Bibi Satnam ji were actually not able to join us. But in their place, Bibi Amanjot ji will be doing Kirtan and Bhai Gurkirat Singh ji will be doing Katha.
ਸੋ ਸਾਰੇ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਜੀ ਆਇਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ. ਹਰ ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਇਸ ਸਾਲ ਵੀ ਗੁਰਮਤ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਜੀ. ਸੋ ਇਸ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਐਡਵਰਟਾਈਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਭਾਈ ਨਵਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੇ ਬੀਬੀ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕੌਰ ਕਥਾ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਰਨੀ ਸੀ. ਕੁਝ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਅੱਜ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ. ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਪਾਸ ਭਾਈ ਗੁਰਕੀਰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਅਤੇ ਬੀਬੀ ਅਮਨਜੋਤ ਕੌਰ ਜੀ ਹਨ.
So Benji has actually recently moved to BC all the way from Montreal. She's very passionate about Seva, has taught Kirtan for many years, has led Sikhi workshops and has been present at Gurmat camps as well. So we're really thankful that Benji could actually start the Smagam off with Kirtan.
ਆਓ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਦੀ ਆਰੰਭਤਾ ਕਰੀਏ. ਸਾਡੇ ਪਾਸ ਬੀਬੀ ਅਮਨਜੋਤ ਕੌਰ ਜੀ ਆਏ ਹਨ ਤੇ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਿਹਾਲ ਕਰਨਗੇ. ਆਓ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਸਰਵਣ ਕਰੀਏ ਜੀ.
ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
Guru Pyari Saad Sangat Ji, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So we were just told that our mics weren't working during the introduction, so I apologize for that. We're just going to quickly do the introduction again, then we'll move on to the Smagam. So welcome to the 18th annual virtual Shaheedi Smagam. Each year, Gurmat Center gets together to remember the Shaheeds of 1984. So for parents, you need to make sure that parents are actually tuning into the Samagam at the same time as the kids. But just in case the parents aren't able to join, please make sure you at least attend the last 15 minutes. And due to unforeseen circumstances, Bhai Navreet Singh Ji and Bibi Satnam Ji couldn't join us. And instead we had Bibi Amanjot Ji doing Kirtan and Bhai Gurkirat Singh Ji will be doing Katha.
ਸੋ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੁਣੇ ਆਰੰਭ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ, ਕੁਝ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਾ ਕਿ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ, ਸੋ ਇਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਕਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਨ ਲੱਗੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ। ਸੋ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਜੀ ਆਇਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਇਹ 18ਵਾਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਹੈ ਜੀ। ਸੋ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਰਲ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ 1984 ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਜਾਂ ਜੋ ਕਤਲੇਆਮ ਹੋਇਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਯਾਦ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਜੀ। ਸੋ ਇੱਕ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ, ਭਾਈ ਨਵਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਅਤੇ ਬੀਬੀ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕੌਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੋਣਾ ਸੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਪਰ ਕੁਝ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਸਕੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਥਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਬੀਬੀ ਅਮਨਜੋਤ ਕੌਰ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਭਾਈ ਗੁਰਕੀਰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਕਥਾ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਜੀ।
And a big thank you to Bibi Amanjot Ji. Thank you for your Kirtan Seva. So this is actually our first time doing a virtual Samagam, and we know that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we can't actually get together in person in Sangti Roop how we normally do. But despite these circumstances, we still wanted to have this Samagam to honor the Shaheeds of 1984 and to remember the Sikh genocide of 1984. And a big thank you to Calgary Sangat, who's actually attending the virtual Smagam as well. So they're actually going to be doing their own separate drive through at their local Gurdwara. So we're very grateful that they could actually attend this Samagam as well.
ਸੋ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਬੀਬੀ ਅਮਨਜੋਤ ਕੌਰ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਿਹਾਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਜੀ। ਸੋ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਦੀ ਬਿਮਾਰੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਸੰਗਤੀ ਰੂਪ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੰਗਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਕੱਤਰ ਹੋਣਾ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਿਲ ਹੈ ਜੀ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੇ ਔਨਲਾਈਨ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਜੀ। ਸੋ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੋ ਜਾਣ, YouTube ਰਾਹੀਂ ਉਹ ਹੁਣ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹਨ। ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਮੂਹ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰਾਂ ਦਾ, ਬੀਬੀ ਜਗਜੀਤ ਕੌਰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ।
And thank you to the Sangat for not going trick-or-treating. For some people, it may have been a hard choice, but we as sons and daughters of Guru Gobind Singh Ji cannot go begging house to house for candy. We are not beggars. Instead, we have our own history to remember, the Sikh genocide of 1984. So nobody is going to remember the history for us, so we can attend smagams like this, and this is the least we can do to remember our own at the house. And remember that we need to call this 1984 Sikh genocide or a massacre. These are not riots. Some people have labeled them as riots, but we need to call it for what it really is, and it's a genocide.
ਸੋ ਸਾਰੀ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਜੀ, ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਕਤੂਬਰ 31 ਤਰੀਕ ਆਮ ਲੋਕ ਨੂੰ ਹੈਲੋਵੀਨ ਮੰਨਦੇ ਆ ਜੀ। ਹੈਲੋਵੀਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਹ ਦਿਨ ਮਸ਼ਹੂਰ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਪਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਸਾਡਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਹੈ ਜੀ। ਅਕਤੂਬਰ 31 ਤਰੀਕ 1984 ਨੂੰ ਭਾਈ ਬੇਅੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ ਜੀ, ਔਰ ਬਾਅਦ 'ਚ ਨਵੰਬਰ 1 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਨਵੰਬਰ 3 ਤੱਕ ਜੋ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਅਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਤਲੇਆਮ ਹੋਇਆ, ਇਹ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਨਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਬਣਦਾ ਹੈ। ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਸੋਭਾ ਵਾਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਸੜਕਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਕੈਂਡੀ ਮੰਗਣ ਜਾਣ। ਇਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਦਿਨ ਤੋਂ ਗੁਰਮਤ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਦਾ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਜੀ ਕਿ ਯਤਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਲਿਆਈਏ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਿਖਾਇਆ ਜਾਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਮਨਮਤੋਂ ਹਟ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਧਰਮ ਅਤੇ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜ ਜਾਣ ਜੀ।
So we just have a few more notes before the katha begins. The first one being a beinti to watch the event completely from start to end. So make sure you don't miss any of the event. There will be special instructions given throughout the program and especially at the end. So please make sure to stay tuned in for the whole time.
ਸੋ ਕੁਝ ਹੁਣ ਬੇਨਤੀਆਂ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਹਨ। ਪਹਿਲੀ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਰਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅਖੀਰ ਤੱਕ ਦੇਖਣਾ। ਮਾਪੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬੈਠਣ। ਜੇਕਰ ਮਾਪੇ ਹੁਣ ਕੁਝ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੈਠ ਸਕਦੇ, ਅਖੀਰਲੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ 15 ਮਿੰਟ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਨਾਲ ਮਾਪੇ ਵੀ ਬੈਠਣ ਜੀ।
And in case of any technical difficulties, please make sure to stay online and keep refreshing the YouTube page. We will be posting any updates to our Instagram or Facebook, but we hope everything does go well.
ਸੋ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਅੱਗੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਟੈਕਨੋਲੋਜੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੇਵਾ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਕੋਈ ਕਿਸਮ ਦਾ ਵਿਘਨ ਨਾ ਪੈ ਜਾਵੇ। ਜੇਕਰ ਕੁਝ ਹੋ ਜਾਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਟਿਕ ਕੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਜੀ। ਅਸੀਂ ਫੇਸਬੁੱਕ ਜਾਂ ਇੰਸਟਾਗ੍ਰਾਮ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਆਪਣੇ YouTube ਪੇਜ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਫਰੈਸ਼ ਕਰਨਾ ਤੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਜਾਇਓ ਨਾ। ਤੋ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰਨ ਸਾਰਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਨਿਰਵਿਘਨਤਾ ਸਹਿਤ ਹੋਵੇ ਜੀ।
And after the virtual part's over, members are actually going to come to the Gurdwara side for a candy bag. So more instructions on how exactly to do that will come soon.
ਸੋ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਜੀ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਅਕਤੂਬਰ 30 ਤਰੀਕ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਆਨਲਾਈਨ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕੈਂਡੀ ਬੈਗ ਲਈ ਰਜਿਸਟਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹੀ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੈਂਡੀ ਬੈਗ ਮਿਲੇਗਾ। ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਅਖੀਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਰੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਵੇਗੀ ਜੀ।
And just a reminder that we will be requiring a special proof, so just instructions about that will be given later, but make sure you stay tuned because that's really important in getting your candy bag.
ਸੋ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੋਣਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਪਰ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕੈਂਡੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਉਹ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਖਾਸ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਹੁਣ ਨਹੀਂ, ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਅਖੀਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੱਚੇ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਵਾਂਗੇ। ਇਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅਖੀਰ ਤੱਕ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ।
So now we're going to have Katha in English for 20 minutes by Bhai Sahib Bhai Gurmat Singh ji. So Bhai Sahib is a leading pracharak in the world, has gone to many Gurmat camps as a guest speaker and is very passionate about Gurmat prachar. ਹੁਣ ਅਗਲੇ 20 ਮਿੰਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਕਥਾ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ। ਸਾਡੇ ਪਾਸ ਭਾਈ ਗੁਰਕੀਰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਆਏ ਹਨ। ਇਹ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰਕ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਵਿਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕੈਂਪਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਗੁਰਮਤਿ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਕਾਫੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਆਓ ਹੁਣ 20 ਮਿੰਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਗੁਰਕੀਰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਪਾਸੋਂ 1984 ਦਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਸਰਵਣ ਕਰੀਏ ਜੀ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ, ਸਤਨਾਮ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ। कबीर मोह मरने का चाव है, मरो तो हर का द्वार, मत हर पूछे कौन है, परा हमारा बार। कबीर मरता मरता जग मुआ, मर पी ना जाने कोय, ऐसी मरनी जो मरा बोहर न मरना होए। जेता जियो पिंड सब तेरा, तू अंतर जामी पुरख भगवान। दासन दास कह जन नानक, जेहा तू कराहे तेहा हो करी बख्यान। दासन दास कह जन नानक, जेहा तू कराहे तेहा हो करी बख्यान। दूरों नेड़ियों सरवण करदी समूह गुरु खालसा साध संगत जी, सतगुरां दी बख्शी होई फतेह आपां सांझी करीए। महाराज जी ਨੂੰ ਸਨਮੁਖ ਸਮਝਦਿਆਂ ਹੋਇਆਂ, ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਨਾਜ਼ਰ ਸਮਝਦਿਆਂ ਹੋਇਆਂ, ਦੋਵੇਂ ਹੱਥ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਬਖਸ਼ੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ। ਸੋ ਗੁਰੂ ਪਿਆਰਿਓ, even though we might be sitting inside of our homes today and we might not be sitting in the sangat of Tan Tan Sahib Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, let's bring our attention, let's bring our focus into the huzuri of Tan Tan Sahib Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. Let's take our focus to Sachkhand Sri Harmandir Sahib Ji. Let's take our focus into Charan of Sahib Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, of Guru Ram Das Ji Maharaj, and let's say the Fateh of Guru Kalgitar Pita. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So Guru Pyareo, Maharaj Ji has done apar kirpa, where the Sangat has collectively come together through this medium of YouTube to remember the historical time of our Sikh history, which we're not too far removed from. So ਪਿਆਰਿਓ, ਗੁਰੂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕੀਤੀ। ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਦਰਦ ਹੈ ਗੁਰਮਤ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਦੇ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਰਮਤ ਦਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖੀ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜਿਆ ਜਾਵੇ। ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਜੋ ਅਜੋਕੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਦਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਪਨੀਰੀ, ਸਾਡਾ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਭਵਿੱਖ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਹਿਰਦਿਆਂ ਉੱਪਰ ਲਿਖ ਲਵੇ ਅਤੇ ਜੋ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਾਲਮ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦਾ ਸੁਪਨਾ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਕਿਤੇ ਵੀ ਨਾ ਪੂਰਾ ਹੋ ਸਕੇ। So ਪਿਆਰਿਓ, why do we remember these Shaheedi Smagams? Why do we hold these Shaheedi Smagams? We as Gursikhs, on this day, many people around this world go trick-or-treating. But just like Sahib Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj took Vaisakhi and made it into Khalsa Sajna Divs, just like Sahib Sri Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji Maharaj took Diwali and made it into Bandi Shor Divs, just like Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj, who made us Shastra Tari, who taught us how to become Surme. They took Holi and gave us Hola Mahalla. Just like that, coming to this Western world, oftentimes we're influenced by Western society. ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ Western society ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹੀ ਕੁਛ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਮਸ ਦੇ ਦਿਨ ਹੋਣ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਦਿਨ ਹੈਲੋਵੀਨ ਦਾ ਦਿਨ ਹੋਵੇ, ਜੋ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਦਿਨ ਹਨ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਪੱਛਮੀ ਲੋਕ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰੀਸਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ। But we as Gursikhs, Maharaj says, Bhai Gurdas ji says, Nanak Nirmal Panth Chalaya. Nirmal means Ujjal, means pure. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj made this pure path and established this pure path where the Gursikhs forsake all the wrongdoings in this world and attach themselves to the truth. Now the question always rises, कि why are there so many shaheeding in the Sikh qawm? कई वारी साडे मन च एक ख्याल आउंदा कि सिख पंथ च इन्नियां क्यों शहीदियां, इन्ने सिख साडे क्यों शहीद होए। जदों भी आपां अपना इतिहास पढ़दे हां, हरेक पन्ने ते शहीदी शहीदी लिखी वे, हर पासे शहीद ही शहीद है। If we look into the account and we look into the first time ever a Sikh became Shaheed, we can trace the path all the way back to Tan Sahib Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. At the time when Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj stood up against Babur in Ahmedabad, Babur came to invade a place called Ahmedabad in northern India. He was an Iranian Mughal who was looking to loot and take all the wealth and the women of India back to Iran. And at that time, in the early 1500s, in 1504, he came to Ahmedabad and started looting and burning everyone's homes down. And there's one Gursikh by the name of Bhai Taraji. And this is our first Shaheed in our Sikh qawm by the name of Bhai Taraji. Bhai Taraji saw everything in Ahmedabad burning. And one house was burning and there's children inside of it. There's women inside of this house. There's a family of Buzurgs inside this house. Bhai Taraji jumped into that fire and he jumped into the burning house, saved everyone and sacrificed himself. And he was one of the first Gursikhs of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, Bhai Taraji, to give up his life for this Qurbani. Guru Pyare, when we look at our ityas, Sikh Panth vich Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj spoke the truth. Wherever people speak the truth is where people become shaheed or qurbaniyan hundiyan. Maharaj ji de Bani de bachan han ke ਜਿਹੜੇ ਰਾਜੇ ਲੋਕ ਹਨ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਾਪੀ ਲੋਕ ਹਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੱਚ ਪਸੰਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ। ਜਿੰਨਾ ਅੰਦਰ ਕੂੜ ਵਰਤਾ ਸੱਚ ਨਾ ਪਾਵੀ, ਜੇ ਕੋ ਬੋਲਾ ਸੱਚ ਕੂੜਾ ਜਲ ਜਾਵੇ. Maharaj says that those people who have evilness inside of them, jinna andar kood varta, who have falseness inside of them, sach na pavi, they can't handle the truth. Sach na pavi, je ko bola sach, kooda jal javi. And if someone speaks the truth, they burn inside. They burn with fire inside of them. And Satguru Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj established a dharma, a faith that is completely the truth. Khalsa Akal Purkh ki Fauj. This Fauj, this Khalsa Panth, is a Fauj of God, is the army of God, is the immortal army of God, and it's a duty and the job of this army to always stand up against injustice. If we look throughout our history, Tan Satguru Sri Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj stood up against injustice. Maharaj sat on the Tati Tavi and gave their Qurbani. Tan Sri Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji Maharaj fought 4 Mahan Jang, and Maharaj stood up against the injustice against Shah Jahan, the emperor of Delhi at that time. Then the time came of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji Maharaj, where they stood up against the injustice of Aurangzeb, also the emperor of Delhi at that time. Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj fought 14 battles against the Hill Kings and Aurangzeb and stood up against injustice. Banda Singh Bahadur stood up against injustice. Many Gursikhs over time stood up against injustice. There came a time, because 1984 se jo kallu ka raha hai. This Sikh Holocaust of 1984 of 1984 is considered third Holocaust of the Sikhs. एक वड्डा कल्लू कारा, एक छोटा कल्लू कारा, एक 1984 ਦਾ कल्लू कारा. And in the Vadda Kallukara, in one day, half of the Sikh nation were killed. 30,000 Sikhs were killed in one day, wiped off this floor, wiped off this earth. And at that time, people used to say that there's no Sikhs left anymore. The Mughals of that time, they would go around and say, koi Sikh reh nahi gaya duniya te. At that time, if there's ever a Sikh on their head, a bounty was placed. If you give us one Sikh, we'll give you 80 rupees. And those 80 rupees are worth $50,000 today. Imagine if we were walking around and they're looking to hunt Sikhs. This is the time our ancestors went through. But they kept their Sikhi strong. And there's no place in history that will read that anyone converted to Islam, they chose death over converting and turning their back to the Guru. They always stayed Sanmukh to the Guru. No one became Vemukh to the Guru. Throughout history, Sikhs went through this injustice, whether that was with the Mughals, whether that was with the British, and then came the time of the partition. And the Hindu majority people of India took over India, and Sikhs were considered a minority, only 2% population in India. And whenever there's minorities, जिथे भी कोई घट गिनती दे लोग होया करदे प्यारे उन्हां नाल जुल्म हुंदा बशक दी ओ सिख होण ਜਾਂ ਇਸ ਧਰਤੀ ਦੇ ਇੰਡੀਜੀਨਸ ਪੀਪਲ ਐਬੋਰੀਜਨਲ ਪੀਪਲ ਹੋਣ ਜਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਅਫਰੀਕਨ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਲੋਕ ਹੋਣ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਹੋਵੇ ਘੱਟ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਹੁੰਦਾ. So it's our duty as Sikhs to learn about our history. And at that time, the Sikhs had all their rights stripped away. The right to even see yourself as a Sikh, to be a Sikh, according to the Constitution of India, was stripped away. We as Sikhs were considered Kesantari Hindu, that there's no difference between us and the Hindus. The only difference between us and them is that we keep our case, which is completely false. We are Sikhs or have our own identity. We have our own gurus. We have our own faith. We have our own scriptures. We have our own Gurdwara. We have our own Nishan Sahib. We have our own Bolli. We have our own Gurmukhi. We're a completely separate nation. And additional to that, the Sikhs had their water rights stripped away. The Sikhs had their land rights stripped away. In Punjab, a Sikh could not hold more than 18 acres of land, where a Hindu or any other person from a minority could keep and buy as much land as they wanted. You might have seen the protests that are happening in India today. Punjab ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਕਿਸਾਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਵਾਪਰਿਆ ਪਿਆਰੋ ਇਹੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸੀ ਜੋ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਆਗੂ ਆਪਣੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਬੁਲੰਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ. They're voicing their opinions and saying we want our rights. Sama seemat hai, so we can't go into all the manga, all the demands of the Sikhs. These weren't demands; these were rights that we had been promised at the time of the partition, at the time by the leaders such as Gandhi and Nehru. But the Sikhs, who give 93% of their heads, who were 93% of the people who were hung at the time of the partition when India was fighting for its own independence. Most qurbaniyan je vekho te sab to vad qurbaniyan Sikhan diyan. If people were sentenced to jail, most Sikhs were sentenced to jail, even though we only made 2% of the population. If Sikhs were in front for all the protests, it was always the Sikhs. There's a small little sakhi I'll share with you guys. We've all seen the Tiranga Chanda of India. We've all seen the flag. The flag has 3 colors on it: orange, white, and green. And at one time, the Hindu leaders, the Sikh leaders, and the Muslim leaders got together and said, we're going to protest against the British. And from the Sikh leaders, there's one Gursikh by the name of Baba Khadak Singh Ji, who did a lot of seva for the Sikh Qaum. And Baba Khadak Singh Ji was an Agu for the Sikhs. And when the flag was created, originally what the colors were was that the white color was on top, the green color was in the middle, and orange color was on the bottom. And at that time, Baba Khadak Singh Ji said, and all the leaders, Gandhi was there, Khadak Singh was there, and the Muslim leaders were there as well. And they said, we're going to march against the British. Who's going to go in front? And the Muslims stepped back and said, we're not going in the front. The Hindus and Gandhi stepped back and said, we're not going in the front. And they said, Sikhs are brave people. Let's put the Sikhs in front. They're not afraid of bullets. And at that time, Baba Khadak Singh Ji stood up and said, if you want the Sikhs to march in front, change the Tiranga Chanda, change the colors of this flag, where you have the white color on top, put the orange color on top, and then whoever comes after, put them in the middle, and then the last people put them on the bottom. That's how India got the colors of his flag. Sikhs marched in the front. Sikhs were always in the front when it came to getting India's independence. But when it came to the Sikhs getting their own rights and promises, those are all stripped away. Why are we sitting here in the West today? Sade Qaum, Sade Punjabi, Bahar nu kyun bhajde ne? Why do we all, our parents and ancestors, come here to Canada? Because the freedom that we have here in this country, our families, our ancestors, our parents did not have that freedom in India. Even to make money, even to work, the Sikhs didn't have the opportunity to work because those evil governments didn't want the Sikhs to be successful in India. They know the Sikhs are very powerful people if you give them the opportunity to take a Raj. So Guru Pyare, when the Sikhs came together, that Anandpur resolution started. Eventually it turned into the Dharmiyuddh Morcha, where many people across India started giving voluntary imprisonment. They started filling the prisons of Punjab and saying, we want to protest against all this injustice. And just like the Guru Sahibs, just like the great Sikhs of Banda Singh Bahadur, one other great Sikh stood up and he shook the Sikh nation, and his name was Sant Gyani Jarnail Singh Ji Pindranwale. The Indian government did not like Sant Ji speaking against the cruelty and the brutality that the government was enforcing upon the Sikhs at that time. Sant Ji spoke for the agricultural rights, the religious rights, the language rights. The Sikhs who didn't even have the right to speak their own language in Punjab for the longest time. Punjab was not a Punjabi-speaking Suba for the longest time. But the Gursikhs gave their Qurbaniya and finally got the right to speak Punjabi in their own province, in their own state of Punjab, and it to be taught in their curriculums in school. And at that time, eventually, when the history goes forward, the Morcha progresses and Darbar Sahib gets attacked. And they did not attack Darbar Sahib to take out some terrorists, to take out some militants, to take out people who wanted their own separate homeland. This is all propaganda that the India government tries to portray to this world. The truth was that the Indian government, which claims to be the biggest democracy in the world, and we're taught in schools that democracy is great, where everyone has a right to voice their opinion, where everyone has a right to voice their vote and select whoever they want. But that nation that with pride says to this world and brags to this world that we, India, are the biggest, largest democracy, they wanted to silence the voice of the Sikhs. They wanted to destroy Sikhi from this earth. And they wanted to stop the revolutionary leader Sant Gyani Jarnail Singh Ji from going and taking people away from the wrong path and putting them back on the correct path. And at that time, Darbar Sahib was attacked. We all know about that. In early June 1984, Harmandir Sahib te hamla hunda. And tens of thousands of people get shaheed inside of Darbar Sahib. The numbers account for 7,000 to 15,000 people became shaheed in Darbar Sahib that time. And going forward, Indira Gandhi had other plans to destroy Sikhs in different ways. If you read her history, there's one Gursikh who wrote a book, The History of the Sikhs, by the name of Bhai Sangat Singh. And inside of that book, on page 418, he writes about another operation, because we know Operation Blue Star was the name of the operation that attacked Sri Harmandir Sahib on June 4th, 1984. But there was another operation that Indira Gandhi and the Congress government at that time had pre-planned to kill more Sikhs, to eliminate more Sikhs. And that operation's name was Operation Shanti Sikh. And these papers came to the fruition after this all happened. That Indira Gandhi had planned that she's going to kick out anyone who's in her cabinet who's a Sikh, for example, Genocide of Sikhs, and implement someone else in his place. And on November 8th, 1984, that year, November 8th, was a Gurpurv of Satguru Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. And on the Gurpurv of Sahib Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, Indira Gandhi was going to release her goons, was going to release her military and do a mass murder genocide of all the Sikhs. That was her plan. And some Gursikhs say that Bhai Satnam Singh and Bhai Beant Singh, who were her bodyguards, got notice of this, who understood this and knew what was going to happen in India if Indira Gandhi went on and did what she had planned in her Congress government. People like Sajjan Kumar and Jagdish Titler, these people who should be put behind bars and should be put behind bars, and they should be brought before the courts and should be given punishment for what they did in 1984 in November, when they led the genocide against the Sikhs under the commands of the Congress party, under the commands of Rajiv Gandhi, the son of Indira Gandhi. Bhai Beant Singh, Bhai Satnam Singh saw what happened to Sri Harmandir Sahib. Bhai Beant Singh, you would actually travel across the world with Indira Gandhi. He was one of Indira Gandhi's main bodyguards, very close with Indira Gandhi. She trusted him a lot. And Bhai Satnam Singh was a new recruit. I had the opportunity to meet Bhai Satnam Singh's brother, and he told me that Bhai Satnam Singh was a new recruit in Indira Gandhi's regiment of bodyguards. And Bhai Satnam Singh and Bhai Beant Singh, their duty, their job to guard Indira Gandhi was at separate times. Bhai Beant Singh was during the day and Bhai Satnam Singh was during the night. And to make sure they were on the duty at the same time, Bhai Satnam Singh pretended like he was sick, so he got his shift shifted a couple hours later so he'd have the daytime duty. When Bhai Beant Singh, Bhai Satnam Singh came together with another Gursikh, Bhai Kaur Singh, and decided and planned what they were going to do, the first thing that they decided to do was to go to Sri Harmandir Sahib. They went to Sri Harmandir Sahib and they planned on October 23rd, we're going to go to Harmandir Sahib, look at Sri Akal Takht Sahib, do Namaskar in Sahib Sri Guru Ramdas Ji Maharaj, Sahib Sri Guru Har Gobind Sahib Maharaj's charan, and ask for their blessing so we can go forward and carry this task that we believe has been placed upon us. We've been given the seva to do this. Bhai Beant Singh went there on October 23rd to Sri Akal Takht Sahib. And he had a plan to meet Bhai Satnam Singh there. And he didn't. Bhai Satnam Singh did not show up that day. Bhai Satnam Singh got caught up in something else at his village. They both went for Shutti. They went and took a leave of absence from Indira Gandhi's bodyguardship. And they went back to Punjab. And he thought that Bhai Satnam Singh got scared. He thought Bhai Satnam Singh backed down. But Bhai Satnam Singh got caught up in another task. And he went to Sri Harmandir Sahib on October 24th. Bhai Satnam Singh did his own separate ardas on October 24th. Bhai Beant Singh did his separate ardas on October 23rd. And they went back and met in Delhi. And before they went and decided to finally do this action to assassinate Indira Gandhi, they both got together and they went to Gurdwara Sees Ganj Sahib, I believe it was, and they took Khande Bhatti, the Amrit. They went before the Panch Pyare and they took the Amrit of the Guru because they both knew that we are not going to live on this earth after we commit this task. Now, Pyare, I was reading in a book, and what was the job of Bhai Satnam Singh and Bhai Beant Singh before I do Samapti? What was the job of Bhai Satnam Singh and Bhai Beant Singh? Their job was to uphold the Constitution and protect India from injustice and anything that goes wrong in India. It was their job to uphold that as the bodyguards of Indira Gandhi. And how did they do that? How did they uphold righteousness inside of India? By protecting Indira Gandhi. Because Indira Gandhi's job when she swore on the constitution was to protect India and protect the homeland and that nation. But if the person whose job is to protect that nation goes against the nation and goes against the people of his nation, then what is the job of Bhai Beant Singh and Bhai Satwant Singh at that time? It's their job, it's their task as bodyguards and protectors of India and Indira Gandhi to go against the person who's killing and assassinating and injusticeably killing people of its own country. They took that seva upon their shoulders. They took that seva upon their shoulders to go and assassinate Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India. Before she can go out and go forward with Operation Shanti Sikh, before she could go and continue her julm against minorities in India, Bhai Satwant Singh and Bhai Beant Singh on October 31st in 1984 at 9 a.m. in the morning, when Indira Gandhi was going to go give an interview with BBC London, they went and assassinated her. Bhai Satwant Singh shot her with 28 bullets and dropped her to the ground. And right away when that happened, they dropped their guns, they all lifted their arms up and surrendered. And once they surrendered before the other officers, Bhai Beant Singh was shot on the spot because Bhai Satwant Singh and the other people, the other bodyguards got in tussle with each other. The other bodyguards took out their gun to shoot Bhai Satwant Singh, and Bhai Beant Singh ran before Bhai Satwant Singh and took the bullet of Bhai Satwant Singh into his chest and dropped to the ground. Following this, Rajiv Gandhi becomes the Prime Minister of India. Rajiv Gandhi tells his police of Delhi, tells his Congress officials, hands over voter lists, hands over gasoline, hands over tires, and hands over all the looters and goons of Delhi, and says, go kill Sikhs wherever they are. And not only were these goons, but people who are very prominent Bollywood stars, they're also shouting, okay, blood for blood, khoon ka badla, khoon se naal. And they were saying that Indira Gandhi's khoon should go to the doorsteps of these Sikhs, meaning if someone killed Indira Gandhi, those people, Sikhs who are associated with them, should go and feel that blood. They should also be killed and murdered inside of their own homes. And at that time, for 3-4 days, this entire week that's coming forward, Sikhs were butchered and killed. From 10,000 to 17,000 Sikhs were killed in Delhi in 3-4 days. And if you do the math, that is one Sikh, that's 5 Sikhs every 1 minute were killed. And every 12 seconds, one Sikh was killed in Delhi in those 3 days. Non-stop killing. People were burnt alive. Women and young women and kids were raped. And at that time, there's one family, there's one Mata by the name of Mata Kaur. 8 people from her family were Shaheed. Her husband became Shaheed that day. Her daughter became Shaheed that day. 2 of her sons became Shaheed that day. Her 2 of her grandsons became Shaheed that day as well. And her daughter-in-law also became Shaheed that day. She was only able to save one person, and that was her son. What she did, she dressed him up in girls' clothes. She put a salwar and a suit on him. She took off his juda and braided his hair and made him look like a girl, and she was able to save one person. This was what happened to us. Countless people were killed, and to this day, Sikhs have not got injustice for that. But Pyareo, what should we learn from this? What should we take forward? I'm going to do Samapti very soon. What we as Gur Sikhs have to learn from this is we have to follow the hukum of our Guru, and our Guru's hukum is always become Shastrtari. Shastrtari huna Guru ke Sikh nu bahut jaruri hai. We as Gur Sikhs are saint soldiers. History repeats itself. In 2002, when Modi, who is a Prime Minister of India today, was the governor of the Chief Minister of Gujarat at that time, he went on and had the Gujarat riots where he killed thousands of Muslims at that time. And he is currently the Prime Minister of India. We don't know what could happen to us or other people in this world As Gursikhs, it's our job to always remain Shastratari, to follow the hukam of our Guru, and to follow and learn this history. I've been only able to touch on a very little bit of this history in the 30 minutes that I've had, but Pyaro is very, very important. And this is a dard of the Gurmat Center, of the Sevadars here, and it's a beinti to the entire Sal Sangat. Gurmat Center has been doing this Samagam for 18 years now. And this is the job and our dream, to take our kids off the streets who are acting like beggars when they go trick-and-treating. But Guru da Sikh kisi da mangta nahi. Guru ka Sikh Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj aggo mangda. And to take the kids off the streets and to teach them about their history and to connect them with their faith. So Pyaro speaking, I made many mistakes. I thank everyone for listening and connecting today through social media, through YouTube, and learning about their history and remembering those Shaheeds. That's the least we can do. Now let's try to learn more about our history and implement something in our जीवन. So बोलदियां बियां तो गलतियां हो गईयां. अजान बच्चे समझ के माफ़ कर लेना. वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह.
Thank you, Bhai Gurmat Singh Ji. It's so important to remember this. Bhai Sahib said 36 years have gone by without justice. These people are roaming free, so please, let's make sure to remember our history. And also just a note for parents, we need to make sure that parents tune in throughout the whole program, but especially the last 15 minutes. So if your parents aren't watching with you, please make sure you ask them to join in.
So Bhai Gurmat Singh Ji da बहुत ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਅੰਦਰ ਸੰਖੇਪ ਰੂਪ ਵਿੱਚ 1984 ਦਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਕੀਤਾ। ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, ਇਹ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਬਣਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਸੁਣ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਆਪਣੀ ਖੋਜ ਕਰੋ, ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ, ਕੁਝ ਵੀਡੀਓਜ਼ ਦੇਖੋ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਤੇ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਕਰੋ ਜੀ। ਸੋ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫੇਰ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਬੈਠੋ ਤੇ ਜੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਖੀਰਲੇ 15 ਮਿੰਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹਿਣਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ।
So we're now going to move on to the short media presentation that we have for everybody. So this is a short documentary by Akal Publishers. It describes the state-sponsored Sikh genocide that happened during 1984. And it not only shows the events during 1984, but the events that led up to that as well. This genocide was actually enacted by government officials who we now see that they're just completely free and justice hasn't been given to them, given to the Sikhs at all. So it's really important to watch this video and learn from it as well. It's very informative. So the next 12 minutes we will be watching this video.
ਹੁਣ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਇੱਕ 12 ਮਿੰਟ ਦੀ ਛੋਟੀ ਜੀ ਡਾਕੂਮੈਂਟਰੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਦਿਖਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਜੀ। ਸੋ UK ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਹੈ ਅਕਾਲ ਪਬਲਿਸ਼ਰਸ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਹ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਬਣਾਈ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 1982 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 1984 ਤੱਕ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਜੀ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਬਣਿਆ ਤੇ 1984 ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਾਂ ਨਵੰਬਰ ਦੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਹਫ਼ਤੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ। ਲੈਟਸ ਵਾਚ ਦੈਟ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਫॉर 12 ਮਿੰਟਸ ਨਾਓ।
From 1982 to 1984, the Sikhs in the northern Indian state of Punjab were peacefully campaigning for more civil rights, which would make Punjab more prosperous. The people of Punjab wanted fair prices for paddy, economic reforms, and parity in usage of Punjab's river waters, to name but a few of the campaign's aims. This civil rights campaign had mass support, and as reported by the New York Times, by May 1983, 100,000 people had courted arrest whilst protesting peacefully. The Indian government labelled this peaceful campaign a threat and a separatist extremist movement, although there was no evidence to substantiate these claims. Rajiv Gandhi, the son of the then Prime Minister and future Prime Minister himself, made this statement in March 1984. I think we should not enter the Golden Temple. The police can enter temples, but it is a question of good balance. Today, as we see it, it is not as if the Sikhs are against the Hindus, and we should do nothing that separates this. Contrary to this statement, the army was called in to attack Amritsar, the Sikh Vatican. 70,000 army personnel entered Punjab and 15,000 were used in the attack, codenamed Operation Blue Star. Citizens for Democracy described the loss of lives in the following way.
Innocent people were slaughtered like rats. Thousands were caught unaware. Finally, when the survivors were asked to surrender, they were shot in cold blood.
The attack was politically motivated, and an Irish professor, Joyce Pettigrew, describes why it was carried out. The army went into Darbar Sahib Golden Temple not to eliminate a political figure or a political movement, but to suppress the culture of a people, to attack their heart, to strike a blow at their spirit and self-confidence. Sikhs were heartbroken by the destruction of the army assault. On their heartbeat, Amritsar. On 31st of October 1984, Satnam Singh and Bhai Singh, who were Indira Gandhi's bodyguards, shot her at 9:30 a.m. She was rushed to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences but did not survive. By 2:30 p.m. on this fateful day, crowds outside the hospital started to chant, "Blood for blood," and Sikhs are traitors. At 5:30 p.m, the President of India, Gyani Zail Singh, and his Sikh bodyguard arrived at the hospital. These two Sikhs of prominence immediately came under attack, as did other Sikhs in the vicinity. On the night of 31st of October 1984, leaders of the Congress Party met to plan the genocide of Sikhs. Sikhs were identified through school, voting and ration lists, which were distributed to systematically target only Sikhs. Congress Party workers distributed iron rods and bamboo sticks to mobs in Indrapuri, Delhi, for them to go and attack Sikhs. Assailants were paid cash and given endless supplies of liquor. The gathered mobs were then instructed to attack Sikhs, kill them, loot and burn their properties. The mobs were rounded up, armed and sent on their way to cause havoc. They were provided transport on Delhi buses. The police, fire service and civil administration were all silent for 3 days. The worst hit areas were where the Congress Party were in control. More specifically, the cities with the most casualties were Delhi, Kanpur and Bukhara. The Sikh Gurdwaras, the focal point of the Sikh communities, were purposely targeted. The Gurdwara offers free meals to any person who enters it, regardless of religion. Thus the Gurdwara is a unique community asset and non-discriminatory in its functioning. Yet they were the first buildings to be attacked by the mobs. In Delhi alone, at least 180 Gurdwaras were attacked. The Sikh scriptures, which are revered as a living prophet, were defiled, urinated upon, and in some cases set alight with cigarettes. Sikhs are a martial race, and they keep arms. So in nearly all instances of violence where Sikhs were attacked, they tried to defend themselves. The police then intervened and disarmed the Sikhs, and after ensuring their safety, gave the mobs free rein to murder, rape and loot the Sikhs. Women and girls were singled out for sexual molestation and rape. The worst affected area was the Logpuri in Delhi, where a widows' colony subsequently developed after at least 400 people were savagely murdered. Sikhs were also attacked on trains. In Delhi alone, trains were halted at least 46 times by mobs searching for Sikhs, and the railway protection did nothing to intervene. At least 179 corpses were recovered from the trains. These massacres fit the UN definition of genocide, which is the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial or religious group. Official government estimates of the dead in Delhi are 2,733, but we will never know the real numbers of the dead. In Delhi alone, more accurate estimates range from 5,000 to 10,000 actual dead. The real death toll across India will never be known. The President of India in 1984, Gyanizal Singh, confirmed in his memoirs that this indeed was a Holocaust, using this exact term. His memoirs reflect the depictions of this video of the events which took place between 1st November until 4th of November 1984. So what has happened in the 30 years since 1984 to seek justice for the dead and survivors? Leading figures of civil liberties have stood up continuously, fighting for justice, forcing successive governments to try and unravel the truth, and enforce the rule of law on those guilty of the crimes. 10 government commissions have been held to investigate the atrocities. Unfortunately, the commissions were more like commissions, leading to little justice or redress. There have been no convictions for rape, and only 13 people to date have been found guilty of murder. All this despite the fact that the Indian government acknowledges officially 2,733 people died in Delhi alone. Some people think we should move on and forget these fateful events, but as the survivor of the Jewish Holocaust, Elie Wiesel wrote powerfully in his novel, Night.
For the survivor who chooses to testify, it is clear his duty is to bear witness for the dead and the living. To forget would not only be dangerous but offensive. To forget the dead would be akin to killing them a second time.
So we cannot forget. Rightly, a number of individuals and organisations will continue to campaign for justice until it is given. H.S. Fulkar has been the bastion of seeking justice via legal means and continues to fight the cases of victims. Sikhs for Justice, a human rights advocacy group, is leading a very successful campaign called 1984, Yes, It's Genocide. They have submitted a petition signed by 100,000 people to the UN to recognise the Sikh genocide formally. In Derby, in the United Kingdom, the Sikh Holocaust Museum has been opened in order to preserve this history and educate people of what really happened on those fateful 3 days. 1984 is now recognised by Sikhs all over the globe as their third Holocaust. In spite of this, Sikhs prosper and their spirit is undeterred. The blood of the martyrs of 1984 Sikh genocide will continue to reinvigorate future generations. No event or person has ever succeeded in destroying the Sikh spirit, and never will. It cannot be contained, nor maimed, and will roar on for eternity.
So Sangatji, this media presentation, this video is on YouTube. I would encourage you all to share it with your friends and family so they too could watch and learn about the events of 1984. But it is now time for the proof, so make sure you have your parents present with you during this part, and make sure you pay close attention. These are going to be special instructions that you need to get a candy bag. So anybody who signed up online is the one who's going to be eligible for a candy bag. So unfortunately, if you didn't sign up online on time by the deadline, you won't be getting a candy bag, and the deadline was yesterday, October 30th.
ਸੋ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ, ਜੇ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਦੇਖਣੀ ਆ, ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ YouTube ਤੇ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਜੀ। ਹੁਣ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਸਮਾਂ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਮਾਪਤੀ ਵੱਲ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ। ਸੋ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਸਰਵਣ ਕੀਤਾ, ਕਥਾ ਵਿਚਾਰਾਂ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇਖੀ। ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੈਂਡੀ ਬੈਗ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਦੇਣੀ ਆ। ਹੁਣ ਮੌਕਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੇਰੈਂਟ ਹਨ ਨਾ, ਮਾਪੇ, ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੈਠੋ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫੋਨ ਵੀ ਤਿਆਰ ਰੱਖੋ। ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਦੇਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ।
So basically what you need to do with the proof is you're going to be taking a picture, and your parents are actually going to do this part for you. So you're going to be in the picture and your parents will be taking it for you. It's going to be with this backdrop right behind us. We are going to move out of the way in just a bit. I will explain the instructions for that, but it basically is a picture that you will have to show at the drive-thru. So your parents are going to take that picture, and anybody in your household who's going to be getting a candy bag needs to be in that picture. So that's why you can't take the picture for your siblings, because if you're not in the picture, you won't be able to get a candy bag. You need to make sure that when the camera pans there, it's going to be a full 3 minutes, so you will have enough time. So the background completely needs to be visible. If you're streaming from something like a TV, you can stand in front of the TV and your parents can take a picture for you. But if it's on a smaller device like a phone or anything like that, hold it in front of you and take the picture with another device. Either way, the background needs to be visible and the picture has to be good quality so that we can see everyone in the picture as well. And this picture will be the proof you need for the drive-thru. So no picture equals no candy bag, so make sure you get that picture in the next few minutes when we are going to pan. We're just going to quickly explain in Punjabi, so you will get that signal when the 3 minutes start.
ਸੋ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਆਪੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰਾਂ 'ਚ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਨੇ, ਹੁਣ ਕੈਂਡੀ ਬੈਗ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਣਾ ਹੈ, ਇਹਦਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬਣਾਈ ਗੱਲ ਜੀ। ਸਬੂਤ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੇ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰਨਾ, ਆਪਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੁਝ ਮਿੰਟਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੈਮਰਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਖੱਬੇ ਹੱਥ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਰ ਲੈਣਾ। ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਇੱਕ ਗੁਰਮਤ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬੈਕਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਜਾਂ ਲੋਗੋ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ, ਉਹ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਆਵੇਗੀ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ, ਆਪੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ TV ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਜਾਂ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਖੜ੍ਹਾ ਕਰ ਦੇਣੇ ਆ ਜੀ, ਅਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਆਪਣੇ ਫੋਨ 'ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਫੋਟੋ ਖਿੱਚਣੀ ਆ। ਫੋਟੋ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੱਚੇ ਵੀ ਆਉਣ ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੁਰਮਤ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਵਾਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲੋਗੋ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਦਿਸ ਰਹੀ ਆ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ। ਉਹ ਫੋਟੋ ਖਿੱਚਣੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਆ ਜੀ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹੀ ਫੋਟੋ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਇੱਕ ਸਬੂਤ ਬਣੂਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬੱਚੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ, ਕਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਚੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹਦੇ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਆਪਾਂ 3 ਮਿੰਟ ਦੇਵਾਂਗੇ ਜੀ। ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਹੋਰ ਸਮਝਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ।
So this backdrop is going to be visible for a total of 3 minutes. So once it pans away from the background, you know your time's going to be up. Just make sure that if you take your pictures before the 3 minutes are over, that you just stay seated, because more important instructions, the final instructions, will be given soon. And I also just wanted to mention, just in case your parents aren't able to take a picture of you, you can take a selfie. So I'm sure you all know what a selfie is, but it's with a front-facing camera when you take it like this. So you're able to take that with your siblings as well, just in case there's no parent to take the picture for you. Just as long as everybody's in the picture should be good for the drive-thru.
ਸੋ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, ਇਸ ਫੋਟੋ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ, ਇਹ ਕੁਝ ਮਿੰਟਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੱਸਾਂਗੇ। ਹੁਣ ਅਗਲੇ 3 ਮਿੰਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਸਾਡਾ ਕੈਮਰਾ ਉਸ ਪਾਸੇ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੜੇ ਆਰਾਮ ਨਾਲ 3 ਮਿੰਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਫੋਟੋ ਆਪ ਖਿੱਚੋ। ਫੋਟੋ ਖਿੱਚ ਕੇ ਫੋਟੋ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਟਿਕਾਣ ਨਾਲ ਅਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਸਾਰਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਸਰਵਣ ਕਰਨਾ। Alright, 3 minutes to take your picture with the background.
So Sangatji, the 3 minutes are now up. I hope everyone got their pictures. So make sure you keep those with you. We'll be asking for those in the drive-thru. And make sure you stay put because we do have final instructions that you need for the drive-thru. So we will be telling those right now. But just before that, we need to make sure that we spend this week remembering the genocide of 1984. It didn't just take place one day, it was Genocide Week. So we need to make sure starting November 1st that in our own family, in our own friend groups, that we remember the genocide that took place. And we do our own type of prachar by telling our friends and family about this as well. 36 years have gone by without justice, and the least we could do is watch videos, do our own prachar, tell our friends and family, join in with any other smagams that happen like this so that we could honor the Shaheeds of 1984.
ਸੋ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਨੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਦਿਨ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਜੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੇ ਮਨਾਇਆ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਇਹ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਸਾਰੇ ਨਵੰਬਰ ਦੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਹਫਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਜੀ ਨਵੰਬਰ 1 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 3 ਤੱਕ ਸੋ ਜੋ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਇਆ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਜੋ ਹੋਇਆ ਮਾਸੂਮ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਬਿਰਧ ਮਾਤਾਵਾਂ ਸਮੂਹ ਸੰਗਤ 1984 ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਤਲੇਆਮ ਹੋਇਆ 36 ਸਾਲ ਬੀਤ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਹਜੇ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਜੀ ਸੋ ਘੱਟ ਤੋਂ ਘੱਟ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਤੇ ਇਸ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਇਹ ਸਾਡਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਬਣਦਾ ਹੈ
So if you have your proof and you're signed up online, that means you're all ready to go for the candy bag. So we hope to see you at the drive-thru once the program is over. So you need to show up with this proof. So if you took it on a specific phone or anything like that on an iPod, make sure you bring that along with you. So what you're going to do is when you arrive, there will be cones leading you to a specific tent. Where this tent is going to be, you will see that once you come through the drive-thru. And then once you're at the tent, you'll get tickets for as many candy bags as your family is going to be receiving. Once you get those tickets, you can drive on ahead and get your candy bags. We do need to note that any student that does not come along with their parents will not receive the candy bag. So you can't send your parent and tell them to get the candy bag for you. Every student that's in the vehicle and has the proof that's approved by the Sevadars will get the candy bag. So basically, no student means no candy bag. So please make sure you come along with your parents.
ਸੋ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਫੋਟੋ ਦਾ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਬੜਾ ਸਿੱਧਾ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਫੋਟੋ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਖਿੱਚੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਹਨ ਉਹੀ ਬੱਚੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਹੋਣ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੱਕ ਗੱਡੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਕਿ ਇਕੱਲੇ ਮਾਪੇ ਆ ਜਾਣ ਜਾਂ 3-4 ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਸਿਰਫ ਇੱਕ ਬੱਚਾ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਦੂਜਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਫੋਟੋ ਲਈ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਫੋਟੋ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਨ ਉਹੀ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੱਡੀ ਆਵੇਗੀ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸਾਡੇ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ ਉੱਥੇ ਟੈਂਟ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਜੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਗੱਡੀ ਰੋਕ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਫੋਨ ਦੇਖਣਗੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫੋਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫੋਟੋ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾਉਣੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਦੇਖਣਗੇ ਉਹੀ ਬੱਚੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਫੋਟੋ ਵਾਲੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗੱਡੀ 'ਚ ਦੇਖਣਗੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਮੁਤਾਬਕ ਅਸੀਂ ਟਿਕਟਾਂ ਦੇਵਾਂਗੇ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਅਗਾਂਹ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਕੈਂਡੀ ਬੈਗ ਮਿਲਣਗੇ ਇਹ ਫੇਰ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਫੋਟੋ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਨ ਉਹੀ ਗੱਡੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਉਣੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ
So the drive-thru is going to be open from 7:15 to 8:15 p.m. It's a whole hour. It's more than enough time. Please make sure that you arrive after 7:15 p.m. and you don't arrive earlier than that. So you have the hour to come through the drive-thru and get your candy bags. And make sure you enter through the main entrance, which is the west side. So that's not the park side because there will be one-way traffic. So that's the only way you can enter. And there will also be a donation table. So donations can be accepted through cash, credit card, or check. So when you're going through the drive-thru, you're also able to donate. And you can also get a wristband, which looks just like this. It says Never Forget 1984 on it. They're sold for $1 at the same donation table. So if you'd like to purchase one, you can do that as well.
So ਇਹ ਕੈਂਡੀ ਬੈਗ ਡਰਾਈਵ-ਥਰੂ ਜੋ ਹੈ ਜੀ 1 ਘੰਟੇ ਲਈ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ 7:15 ਵਜੇ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 8:15 ਵਜੇ ਤੱਕ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਉਣਾ ਜੀ ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਰ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸੋ ਭੇਟਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਡੋਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਜੇ ਵੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਜੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਿਰਤ ਕਮਾਈਆਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਦਸਵੰਧ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਭੇਟਾ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ ਖੜੇ ਹੋਣਗੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੈਂਡੀ ਬੈਗ ਲੈਣਾ ਉਹ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ ਹੋਣਗੇ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਡੋਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਜੀ
And a big thank you to all the Sangat who tuned in virtually for the 18th Annual Shaheedi Smagam. This is Gurmat Center's first ever virtual Smagam. And a big thank you to Calgary Sangat who are also joining us virtually and will be having their own drive-thru for their youth at their local Gurdwara.
ਸੋ ਅਖੀਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰਾਂ 'ਚ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ YouTube ਰਾਹੀਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੋਏ ਜੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਸਾਰਾ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਿੰਮਤ ਕਰਕੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੋ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਕਥਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਹਰ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਬੇਅੰਤ ਗਲਤੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ, ਅਣਜਾਣ ਬੱਚੇ ਸਮਝ ਕੇ ਮਾफ़ ਕਰਨਾ। ਬੇਨਤੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਆਪ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਿੱਖੋ, ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿਖਾਓ ਅਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਕਰੀਏ ਜੀ। ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਅਖੀਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾਲ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਓ ਜੀ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।